March 15th, 2020. And so what started off as a no shave November just continued, but now spring is coming. We have hope with vaccines on the way. And so I did shave it off, and now a lot of people don't recognize me anymore. But I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And, just thank you all for your continued engagement. Over the past year, we've seen our business community adapt and work through the challenges of this pandemic. Howard County is home to more than 10,000 businesses, with 86% representing companies with fewer than 10 employees, many of whom were the hardest hit. And I remain deeply grateful for the continued advocacy of our federal delegation and the partnership with our chamber, our Economic Development Authority, Visit Howard County, our tourism arm, and so many others. Now, since July, we've provided more than $13.5 million in CARES Act funding to our restaurants, small retailers, farms, hotels, live venues, and childcare providers. We were able to get that funding into the hands of our residents and businesses who needed it most, quickly and efficiently, because of the partnership of so many on the ground right here working each and every day. Now that the American Rescue Plan has passed Congress and has been signed into law by President Biden, our residents will have the long-term resources needed to ensure an equitable vaccine distribution, continued support for our vulnerable residents and businesses, and the funding necessary for our road to recovery, not just fiscally, but also as a community. It's important for our businesses to have what you need to not only get through this pandemic, but hopefully on the other side of it and thrive. And one last thing before I introduce my colleagues. Howard County is currently involved in the general planning process. The general plan is a comprehensive, long-range master plan for all of Howard County. It establishes policies on how and where the county will develop and grow in response to evolving economic, environmental, and social conditions. We value ideas and input from our business community. Please know, if you would like to provide input, send your information to the email in the chat. I want to hear from you. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce a couple of my federal friends and partners. I'm so appreciative of the continued partnership and the advocacy of our federal delegation. The American Rescue Plan will be a lifeline for our community and every jurisdiction in Maryland and throughout our nation. My partners in public service, Senator Chris Van Hollen and Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger, who I'm sure will be glad that it's not only St. Patrick's Day, but I'm wearing Ruppersberger green. They work diligently every day on the Hill on behalf of our shared constituents. Senator Van Hollen was recently assigned to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and also serves on the Appropriations Committee, the Budget Committee, and the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. And in the House, Congressmember Ruppersberger has returned to the Appropriations Committee while serving on the Defense, Homeland Security Subcommittee and the Commerce, Justice, and Science Subcommittee. Together, they are continuously fighting for the resources and investments we need in our community. So now, please join me in welcoming my friends, Senator Chris Van Hollen and Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger.
Well, thank you, Mr. County Executive. And let me start by thanking you for your leadership during these very difficult times as all of us work to battle and defeat the coronavirus together, as well as the economic fallout. We're grateful for all you're doing on the front lines, and it's wonderful to be here with my friend and colleague, Congressman Ruppersberger, and we're all very pleased to be joining with the Howard County Chamber of Commerce today. And I do want to thank the president of the chamber, Leonardo McClarty. Thank you for your leadership, and of course to the chairman of the board, Charles Phillips, and to your entire team, because all of us here in public life recognize that the work that our small businesses do and our medium-sized businesses do and all our businesses are what helps generate job opportunities for all Marylanders, all Americans. And I know that we've all been going through an especially difficult time, but most of all, a lot of our small businesses have been hard hit. And that's why both at the local level with County Executive Ball, but at the federal level as well, Senator Cardin, myself, Dutch Ruppersberger, and our team, we've been very focused on trying to give businesses the tools they need to weather the storm and to the extent possible, keep on their employees so that we can get to the other side of this and then accelerate our economic growth together. We have, on the Congress, as you know, passed a number of major laws beginning about 1 year ago with the CARES Act. And then in December, another important measure, and most recently, the American Rescue Plan. I'm going to talk briefly about those provisions that most directly relate to our business community. And then I know we'd be happy to answer any questions on other aspects of the bill. Starting with the CARES Act, we launched the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program, and we improved that over time. The initial plan, I think, was overly bureaucratic. It had various deadlines and conditions that did not make business sense and did not meet the need of many businesses. And so those have changed over time. Most recently, as part of the bill that we just passed, the American Rescue Plan, we've provided additional funds to the PPP program. And we also continued the expansion of coverage to include 501c6s like the Howard County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm pleased to learn that the chamber received $76,000 from that program. So in the most recent bill, we provided another installment of money for PPP. We're also going to be extending the program for another 2 months because it will expire at the end of this month. The House just passed a 2-month extension, and I hope the Senate will take that up quickly. That bill, the American Rescue Plan, also includes additional funds for the EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and happy to go into details if there are any questions on that front. The bill also includes, for those in really hard-hit industries like the restaurant industry, special relief. There's nationally a $28 billion fund for restaurant revitalization. And I know all of us have worked hard together to address the particular stresses that restaurants have experienced during this crisis. There's also a $10 billion state small business credit initiatives for CDFIs and MDIs, both as part of the December bill, as well as the most recent bill that we passed. And finally, and I know that County Executive Ball is especially pleased with this, this most recent bill does provide substantial assistance, not just to the state of Maryland directly, but directly to our county governments and municipal governments. But that should help the county executive and the county council with much more flexible dollars than were provided in the earlier CARES bill. There are guardrails, there are guidelines, but these monies are very flexible, and Howard County will receive just over $63 million in direct funds to help it navigate the defeat of the coronavirus and help those who've been hardest hit. So We look forward to continuing to partner with our great county executive in Howard County and with our great businesses in Howard County as we weather the storm together. And really, I think and I'm going to end with this. The American Rescue Plan is designed to do three things. One, to finish off this virus with vaccines in terms of supply and distribution. Number two, to continue to help those who've both been hardest hit, whether they're families, workers, small businesses, others that have been especially hard hit. But it's also designed to give us an economic boost as we come out of this economic downturn caused by the pandemic. And economists from across the political spectrum, Republicans, Democrats alike, said we've got to go big to make that happen. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office told us that if we do nothing more, we will live with much higher levels of unemployment until the year 2025. And that's not acceptable, because as we beat this virus, as people begin to, get back into their lives again, we want to make sure that our economy comes out strong. And that's why this American Rescue Plan is so important. So thank all of you for bringing us together today. Thank you to our small businesses for all you've done to keep people working and then bring people back to work as we get out of this. And thank my colleague, the county executive, and my friend and colleague, Dutch Ruppersberger. And Calvin, let me just say, you've been a great leader, and we're grateful for all you've done. Now, I don't know what's next, but I will now turn it over to somebody who has worked really hard for all parts of his congressional district, all parts of our state, and for the country. And that's my good colleague, Dutch Ruppersberger, and it's been a joy to work with him. Both of us serve on the Appropriations Committee, and we work very closely together. And for those of you who don't follow Congress really closely, that's the committee that oversees the federal funds. And so I'm grateful to him for all his work. Dutch?
Well, Chris, first, thank you. And working with you and our team in Maryland, we work together as a team. And it's great to have you on appropriations and all of your experience. And you really make a difference for our state. And we try to do the best we can under these circumstances. Calvin, I used to have the job of county executive. It's a big challenge. You've got a lot on your plate, but you're doing a great job. And, I never had to manage through COVID, and I can't imagine, the responsibilities you have to run a major county. A county that's such a great county as Howard County. And we have the chamber here, and Leonardo, you've been around for a while, and you know business and work with the chamber to help create jobs, and that's great. As the senator outlined, this bill was absolutely necessary if we wanted to defeat the pandemic once and for all. And while preparing our economy for the quickest recovery, experts believe possible. Now, this is a historic crisis that demands a historic response. The risk of doing too little is far greater than the risk of doing too much. The nonprofit Congressional Budget Office, as Chris has stated, has said it will take at least 3 years before employment returns to pre-pandemic levels without the American Rescue Plan, and at least 4 years to recover to the pre-pandemic GDP projection. With this bill, this is so important, we're looking at recovering both by the end of this year. And this is a major accomplishment. And Calvin, again, I want to just give you a quick shout out about your leadership. And, it's just so important that you move ahead. I've been fighting, we've been fighting for state and local aid since day one. And, if we had more members of Congress that served in local government and state government with that experience, in my opinion, we would have had this bill passed a lot sooner with zero hesitation. This isn't some bailout, and people call it bailout of local governments who've been careless with spending over the years. Come on, let's give me a break. Our state and local governments have been on the front lines in this pandemic. They're still responsible for cutting paychecks to our teachers, police officers, firefighters, and many public health workers while facing historic revenue losses and unforeseen expenses related to the pandemic, including vaccine distribution. So we were relieved to see the aid come as quickly as it can to the states and counties. And Calvin, yeah, I know you'll spend it wisely. Now, I'm gonna stop here just to go into questions. And let me tell you, I'm gonna have to leave soon. We're in the middle of votes. We have 8 votes, and with this new voting schedule we have with the pandemic, our votes are taking a lot longer. So about maybe 10 minutes, I'm gonna have to leave, but if it's okay, let's open up the questions.
Thank you, both Senator Van Hollen and Congressman Ruppersberger. And so I'm going to ask for those that have questions to put it in the Q&A, as it makes it a little bit easier to monitor as opposed to the chat. But the first question that I actually have, I do have a couple that were sent to me in advance. And this one pertains particularly to SBA determinations and loan forgiveness. And so the question is there anything that Congress can do to encourage the SBA to make determinations of loan forgiveness on loans over $2 million in the 90-day period? And the other additional commentary was that, again, they wanted to encourage the both of you and in Congress to require the SBA to disclose any additional information that is being considered to determine qualification for forgiveness that is different from loans under $2 million. And so this is coming from one of our accounting firms that certainly is working with a number of small businesses and so forth on both PPP above 2 million as well as PPP below. And so this would be for any one of you that may want to tackle that question.
Well, I'm happy to take a stab at it. And President McClarty, because this came in early and you flagged it, we had a chance to contact the SBA directly about it. So I can give you the most up-to-date information here. What they're telling us is that they're not sort of additional criteria, but because they are overwhelmed, continuing to implement all the programs under their jurisdiction, this has been a resource issue, and they did prioritize those loans, the $1 million loans, for forgiveness. So it's not that they're applying, other criteria to them. It's a resource question, and I will say, and as you mentioned, I'm now the incoming chair of it's called the FISG Subcommittee on the Appropriations Committee, which actually oversees the funding for SBA. And we're going to be pushing them very hard to use their resources to get this done as quickly as possible and supply them with additional resources to meet these needs. The last point I will make is, and I know it's not a total consolation when you're sort of in limbo, but when the loan is finally forgiven, SBA does pay the interest on that loan up until the date it's forgiven. So I know that if you're in limbo and you don't know exactly what criteria are being applied, that doesn't give you 100% confidence. But again, the purpose of this emergency loan program is to help small businesses. And so I don't think you're going to find them applying some new criteria nobody's heard of to try to deny somebody forgiveness.
And Chris, good answer. I think too, we know what the needs are. I think that we've come a long way just in the last couple of months, since you've been chairman, by the way, Chris, of that committee. And by the way, if I need any help on that, I'll give you a call too.
Absolutely.
Your constituents too. But anyhow, but we still do have to keep in mind, there's a lot of volume. A lot of the people working on this have done it for the first time in this regard. And we have to make sure too that we do it right. And we want to make sure too that as members of Congress, we can hold them and accountable for what they're doing. But from what we've seen so far and the constituents we've helped in that regard, it seems like they're very cooperative and they're working hard. And I'm sure that if they need more help, we're going to help them because small business needs help.
Thank you. And This next question, and this is also still on the PPP, related to the PPP. And it says, I'm going to read it here. Our staff includes some contributors who are 1099 employees. Some of these contributors have been with our organization for more than 20 years, yet they are not on payroll. And so we were told they are not eligible for a PPP claim. Is there a possibility that 1099s could be included with a PPP application?
So let me first say that I'm going to have to track. I mean, Dutch may, but we're going to have to. Mandy Heinel from my team, my office, is with us. I believe I don't see her, but
She's here. We spoke to her.
Good.
She's
All right.
here.
So she's going to track down the answer to that question and get right back to you. And as I mentioned, the PPP program has evolved since it was, first launched almost a year ago in the CARES Act. So let me see what we can find. We have somebody on our staff, Bart Kennedy, who's not sole, but he's become an expert on PPP, and Mandy can confer with him.
Thank you. And actually, we just had a response. That's one of the good things about, the chamber, and particularly the Howard County Chambers. We're fortunate to have some really top-notch accounting firms. And so I just got a note here that it says that they will be eligible under the new Schedule C rules. And okay. So I'll follow up offline on that one as well. And so let's see the next question that we have here. And so this is actually just a comment, but that is the fact of this person just wants to, with Aronson, just wants to specifically to thank you, Senator Van Hollen, for your work. As I understand, they share an office building with you. And I think they said your space is right above theirs, and so they just thank you for all the work that you do, particularly on behalf of Maryland and so forth. This next question, I think, Congressman, I think you referenced it, and it may have come from, I think you mentioned maybe from the Congressional Budget Office, but it had to do with just the sheer size of the rescue plan and ultimately the sheer need to go large. And yet the question that came in ultimately comes back to the size of the plan and also deficit spending. And so could you maybe share perhaps some of the deliberations that took place and if there are any concerns as it relates to what a plan of this size continues to do in terms of adding to the deficit?
Well, let me address it head on. To begin with, the issue that you have heard, 9% of this bill only goes to COVID, and this is a lot of pork, and that's simply not the case, and has been dispelled by many political fact checkers, and including the majority, I think, of the accountants and CPAs who work on this issue. But the truth is that about 85% of the bill is specifically pandemic related, and that includes 22% for stimulus checks, 13% extending unemployment benefits, 12% for related healthcare needs, testing and tracing, PPE, business assistance, those type of things, and then 27% assistance to state and local government, and that includes things like schools and childcare and so many other issues that we have to deal with in local government. And those are the facts. That's where we are. These are the most difficult times that we will probably ever see in our lifetime. And one of the things we're trying not to do is to wake up in a depression. We've been lucky that the interest rates have stayed pretty low, that people are buying houses still, and because the stock market is staying pretty steady, and that helps us too. But this took a lot of time and a lot of issues. And the good news, when it was so serious, we eventually passed the CARES Act, and that was more of a bipartisan bill. We had to push the other side a little, but it was there. And the same thing with what we just passed right now. It's unfortunate that we couldn't get any Republicans except for a few And I think on this bill, there was maybe one or none at all. And, we as a country are only going to make it if we start working together. And there are a lot of needs out there. There are a lot of needs as it relates to middle class. And I'll give an example for the tax cut that Trump put through. That 81% of the money in that tax cut went to the top 1% in our country, and that didn't help middle class. If you look at history, when middle class gets help, the economy does better, including small business and other businesses. So we don't just show up and vote partisan. We research. We have experts that look at this. And I can tell you from being in Congress for a while now, and Chris can tell you the same thing. You work together as a team. It helps our country and it helps moving forward. So that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, I would just really underscore what Dutch said, that economists from across the political spectrum, including some of the former President Donald Trump's top economists, agreed with Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen and others that the risks of going small were much greater than the risks of going big, as Dutch said. And that we all remember after the 2008-2009 financial meltdown, Dutch and I were here. We passed the American Recovery Bill back then. It was a little around $1 trillion bill. We wanted, some of us wanted to be bigger then. It got negotiated down. Unfortunately, back then in the House, not a single Republican voted for the American Recovery Bill. But then a lot of people complained that the recovery, the rate of growth coming out of that Great Recession was too slow. So part of this bill is designed to give us a boost as we break free of this pandemic and make sure the economy can really reach its full potential as quickly as possible. And if we don't do that, we're going to be paying, as we all know, slower economies also mean slower federal revenue receipts, and that adds to the deficit. So I think it's in everyone's interest to get us back to full capacity as soon as possible.
Thank you. And so we've got a couple more questions here that I think maybe both of you will have time for, as I'm watching the clock, as I'm sure you are as well. And so maybe, Senator, this will go to you, and the next one we'll send to the congressman. And so the question is, the federal and state governments have figured out that, well, federal and state government have figured out that local governments are in the best position to administer grant disbursements, but yet there is no administrative support associated with any of these resources. So the question is ultimately, is that something that can be changed? And I think it again pertains to the funding that continues to come down to the local governments. The fact that there's, I guess, programmatic dollars, but not necessarily administrative dollars.
Well, the funds come in different channels. So for example, there's a set of funds that goes to Howard County schools. And they certainly, in my view, have the administrative capacity to deal with the funds that they've received. I've not heard any complaints from them about their monies. Howard County Community College received funds. I know they appreciate the monies they've got, and of course, this time around, the county executive and the county council will be the recipients of the monies I mentioned, and I believe that they have the administrative capacity to handle these federal funds. If they don't, I'm sure they'll share that with us. So I've actually not heard. I like Dutch. I've spoken to a whole lot of our county executives, and none of them have expressed, concern about the fact that there's not more money set aside for administrative purposes. Most of them have the infrastructure, I think, to deal with it. Now, there's some smaller municipalities, not in Howard County, but other parts of the state, where it is going to be important that we all, work with them and provide oversight. And this bill does have provisions requiring that people list how they're using the funds.
And just thing I have to say, when you're dealing with trillions of dollars and big money, it's not that we don't trust state and local governments, but an element of funding and appropriations is accountability. So it's always important that we do have accountability whenever we're putting out big pots of money.
Thank you. And actually, I think this question here actually probably ties to accountability as much as anything. And so the question was, what are we doing to make sure that this money is going to stay in Maryland? And I think specifically this is referencing obviously the money that's been appropriated to our state. And are there any plans to focus buying? Let's see here. I need to maybe figure out exactly how to phrase the second part of this statement, this question. But I think the biggest thing maybe first is, I guess if you can talk a little bit about, I guess when the money comes down to the various states, just ensuring that it's staying in the state. And then, like I said, I'm going to read maybe you can, the question, the second part of that question was, are there any plans to focus buying from in-state companies? And so, I'm not sure if one of you.
Well, I'm happy to take a crack at it. So, I mean, this bill does not dictate to states how they spend the money. I think both Congressman Ruppersberger and I would like to see, Maryland focused resources in a way that helps Marylanders and Maryland businesses. But we're going to have to work to, oversee the funds. I mean, we have a state legislature as well that hopefully can work with us to make sure that the monies that go to the states goes to the highest and best use for all Marylanders.
Yeah, and I think we got some clarity. I think this person was just primarily wanting to know, is there a way to focus the dollars that basically would come in, that they're used in state companies and not necessarily used in out-of-state companies. So if it's money that was coming into Maryland, and it's going to be that it's spent with Maryland firms as opposed to, say, Pennsylvania, Virginia firms or whatever, which I guess my answer to that would probably be it's going to be difficult in that realm. I mean, each local government, whether, county, city, state, I mean, they've got their procurement policies and have to ensure that they're getting the best service for the best dollar, and probably can't just immediately say, well, we're going to rule out this particular state, based upon their own local procurement policies.
Well, look, the whole purpose is to have money stay in the state or benefit the state of Maryland, just like money that goes to Virginia. But when you have big businesses and their home offices are in the state of Maryland, you don't want to tie their hands that will hurt the business or the cash flow or issues like that. So I think we know what we want to do. There is some specificity and where some of this money is going to go in certain areas. We know money in education is going to, I'm sure it's going to stay in the state of Maryland, and those type of things. With our public safety will stay in the state of Maryland and in the counties and where they are. But you can't tie hands, but that's what we do as appropriators. And whether it's federal, state, or local, because they're going to have to vote where to appropriate monies to, that's our job. And I think we'll be okay, because we haven't seen a lot of abuses in the state. I know Chris and I have both been on appropriations for a while, and I haven't seen that many abuses in what you're talking about.
No, thank you. And again, as I'm looking at the time, I want to be conscious of both of your schedules. And so with that, I want to thank you, and certainly don't want to rush you off, but again, want to be respectful of your schedules. And so want to just say thank you for making time to come today, as well as for your service to Maryland, as well as obviously to the country, and certainly look forward to continuing to work with your respective offices and staff and so forth. And certainly know that you're welcome here in Howard County, and want to thank our county executive for joining as well. For those of you that, I know that both Mandy and Elliot are still here, and so if there are any additional questions that you may want to ask, I know the two of them are here, and obviously if they can't answer it, I know that they will get back to you. But again, if there are any additional questions, we will prepare to wrap things up. Mandy did just drop her email again in the chat, which is Mandy_Heinel@vanhollen.gov. Or hopefully I didn't leave anything out, but ultimately it's in the chat. And and Elliot did the same thing as well. So again, thank you to you, Senator Chris Van Hollen, to you, Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger, and to those of you that were able to join us this afternoon. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and see you soon.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Take care. Good to be with you.